In failing times, how do we find the strength to overcome? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Restart Wellness. This is a weekly live learning program powered by Project Ripple, aimed to discuss how people can stay healthy in a new reality. My name is Stephen Koo. Thank you for joining us. This week, we're talking about how we can stay strong despite experiencing both failure and failing times. Kung di nyo alam, may difference yung dalawa. So we're gonna find out more about that later on. So joining me today is my co-moderator at ang inyong future host for Restart Wellness episodes, NLP life coach and founder of Train Station Philippines. Please welcome Karel Herrera. Hi, Karel.
An amazing afternoon to everyone. I'm just so honored to be here. And as you said, Stephen, this year, ang daming pinagdadaanan ng lahat ng tao. And I'm sure you've experienced struggles and people have experienced loss. People have lost jobs, loved ones, and peace of mind during this time. And on top of that, nakakaranas tayong lahat ng feeling na, paano ba tayo babangon ngayon? We've been left with, thoughts of how do we recover from this, especially with the government, for example, the organizations left and right with the poor response to the crisis. We don't know how to respond to this crisis. Now, media company Vox recently released a video detailing mutually exacerbating catastrophes. Nakaka-nosebleed yun. Mutually exacerbating catastrophes. It's a label to explain the seemingly non-stop domino effect of crisis na na-experience natin since the onset of the pandemic. Do you want to watch this video, Stephen?
Yeah, let's watch that, Karel.
Okay, here's the clip.
Mutually exacerbating catastrophes. It's the idea that disasters end up creating and then cementing crisis after crisis. A pandemic feeds into a recession, feeds into income inequality, feeds into civil unrest, and on and on. A ripple in one sector, in one country, is felt globally, but it is not felt proportionally. Just as COVID-19 has been more lethal to patients with pre-existing conditions, the disease has been disproportionately devastating to lower-income economies and people.
Wow. Well, to help us answer the hot take question of the day, ipasok na natin yung mga guests natin to see how we can overcome failure and failing times. So first off, you want to introduce our first guest, Karel?
Yes, absolutely. The modern sage and life mentor, Master Del Pe.
Hi, how are you, all of you?
Hi, Master. Our next guest, of course, the founder of Wholesome Table and a wellness practitioner herself, Bianca Elizalde. Welcome, Bianca.
Hi, everyone.
And mental, emotional therapist and integrative nutritionist, Saps Utam. Hello.
Hey, welcome, Saps.
Everyone.
Okay, so let's jump right into it already, guys. So we posted this question a while ago for our audience, and we're going to post the same question to you guys. It's the hot take question of the day. And the question is, have you experienced a major failure in life? Yan. So answer by saying yes or no. So if you guys have your yes or no signs, now is the time to put it up. Has anybody in this group experienced major failure? Yeah, no for Bianca. Yes for Master. Very intriguing, Bianca. I want to find out why you say no. Saps? Yes or no for you, Saps?
No.
Oh, wala pa yata yung audience. Okay, no then. Okay, no rin si Saps.
No.
Okay.
What about you, Stephen?
Ako,
Yes or no?
Ako, I would say yes. And ikaw, Karel, ano ba dyan? Anong take mo dyan?
Well, I say yes also, syempre. And there is also a way of recovery and bouncing back from it, learning from it.
Correct. Okay, so we'd like our audience also to answer this question because we're going to pull up the poll in a while. In the meantime, I'd like to encourage our viewers to key in their questions in the comment section because we will be picking out questions for our guests to answer later on in the program. Okay, so with that, let's jump right straight into the issue with a segment that we call the slant. Okay, to start off the first half of the slant, tingnan natin at how this global crisis changes the way we try to manage it for both ourselves and for the people around us. So my first question for Master, is there a difference between failure and failing times?
Well, failure is more on individual failure, microcosmic, because it's like you alone and the world can be good and normal. Failing times is usually failing with other people and the world at large. and it's complicated. It's has ambiguity. It has unpredictability and volatility. So it's less manageable. Failing time is more difficult. Like now, even our experts, our scientists, our entrepreneurs and leaders are getting confused with everything. So I think in terms of failing times, you have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. In normal time, when you fail, you can just hope for the best and prepare for the worst. In failing time, you have the macrocosmic, including humanity, the world, nations, all different organizations are not able to just cope or thrive. They have a bigger problems than the coping mechanism. In normal times, when you cry, people can come to you, and even when you are an underdog, they can help you. In failing times, you're not the only one crying. Everyone's crying with you because it's a difficult situation where there's a macrocosmic problem bigger than ourselves. So there's a big difference.
Okay.
But may I ask the next question here? Because what if the failure and failing times are happening at the same time? How do you survive both?
Yeah,
That
that's why.
happens, right?
Yeah, if you are failing during the failing times, there are no options sometimes, or there's less option than in good times. So the hero and or the problem solver or the crisis manager during failing times has less solutions, and so they have to be squeezed with certain amount of pressure that sometimes they fail without options. It's like a law of no choice. So there are new things, new rules of the game. The street rules are unpredictable compared to good times when you can predict the outcome. So the good solutions and formula of success during good times does not always apply during failing times. So the hero of the wartime or difficult time is totally a different makeup and quality and virtues than in good times. So there are new equipping and new adaptation and versatility added into the thing. For example, the additional need of willpower, discipline, focus, the ability to be frugal, to be thrifty, and all kinds of adjustments. They are much needed during failing time because you don't have a choice. In good times, people can loan you money, they can caress you, and everyone is happy around you. So you can be influenced by the group who is more positive. In failing times, people are all stressed, and it's like the world at large that's being stressed, not only individual. So
Okay.
there's solution, but there's
Yeah.
a little more tools to use.
So just to clarify, so that everybody understands, failure is more on a personal level. Failing times is, sabi nga ni Master, medyo macrocosmic. Yung, the world at large is going through a failure. Like siguro, like right now, a pandemic, or in other times, recession, a major catastrophe, mga ganon. Okay, Saps and Bianca, what's your take on failure and failing times? I mean, you mentioned kanina, Bianca, you don't believe in failure, and so did you, Saps. So let's start together with Bianca. Bianca, why
Yeah.
don't you believe in failure?
Yeah, honestly, I don't like the word failure. And I've really tried to practice never using it, especially as a mother to very young kids. I try not to make it part of my vocabulary. I don't ever want them to fear making mistakes, basically, especially because coming from a mother's perspective, I try to raise them with a growth mindset. So, the way I see it is that life is really like a journey. And there are many turns that you're going to be taking and many ups and downs. And it really is just part of life. So, when things fail in your life, or some people see them as failures, sometimes I believe you're just not meant to be there at that point, and there is something else for you. Or I try to look at it in a more positive way, and I try to get the negative out of failure and look at it as a learning experience.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't become failure as a negative. So that's sort of like what I teach my children is, if they make a mistake, or if they do something that they deem, like they feel like they failed, it really is just a learning experience, and you just keep going. And I really honestly don't think that failure exists if you keep trying and if you keep moving.
Basically, parang don't call it out, because whatever you call it out, it becomes that. So instead of calling it failure, you call it a learning experience, parang ganon, right? That's what you're
I
saying.
guess you can look at it that way. Yes.
Okay. Saps, are you with us, Saps? Oh, I think Sap froze. There. Sapna, what's your take on it again? Sapna, can you hear
Can you
us?
hear me?
Yeah. You're coming in
I
choppy though, but yeah, we
froze.
can hear you. Go ahead.
So you know what? I totally understand what Bianca was trying to say. So I totally understand what Bianca was saying because first of all, mentally to say that word, failure is already like it's such a downer. It's
Mm.
so negative. It's you can't rise from that. It's like mentally you feel when somebody says or when you say that to yourself. The most important thing here is, do you think you're a failure? It doesn't
Mm.
matter what other people tell you, but when you say that to yourself, it matters. So a while ago we were talking with Bianca and I said, I don't like that word because if
Mhm.
it's not for you, then, learn from it and then find what's meant for you. But when you say that word and it's so negative, you almost feel like
Mm.
everything is closing in on you. It's very personal. You take it to a whole different level. So for me, it's not really about being a failure, but maybe that's just not for you. Learn and then
Mm.
move on. You
Move
know,
on. Okay.
because yeah, move on and find
Okay.
what's for you.
Go ahead, Carol.
Right. I think kasi it's really important what our language is, eh, 'di ba? Kung ano yung sinasabi natin, it's really very important. And my question is, bakit ngayon? Why do people fear failure? So many people are so
Mm.
afraid of it. Why? Why do you think? Does anyone have an answer to that? Maybe Sabs, B, or Master Delpe?
I think there's a perception issue here. See, you are one out of 7.8 billion. So there's one thing that your perception is what your truth and reality, and there's an ideal. You want to be in that ideal. So perception is there's an ideal, there's the reality, and there's truth. The truth is not always equal to reality and ideal. So when
Mm.
I want to become a good father and I project to everybody that I'm not failing, yet I might be failing in terms of finance, my health, and others. So you cannot just keep on saying to them that I'm not failing, but I'm almost dead because I had smoke or something. So this is time where you have to see what's reality, what is happening versus what you want to be, an ideal, and what is truth behind your disease, for example. Right
Mm.
now, 65 million Americans have filed uh, unemployment benefits. I'm not one of
Mm.
them, but I'm saying if you see that status, it has never happened before. The GDP of the United States is almost half of the normal thing. So there's our evidence which creates reality, and there's what you want to perceive. Like if I want an easy way out, I will not have to believe in anything people say until I'm affected by other people's
Mm.
events. So there's
I,
nothing as individual, and there's this macrocosmic collective consciousness that's failing
yeah.
or is not succeeding. If you want, you can remove the word failing and say not succeeding. Because as I also say, there's no such thing as a failure unless you become more wise and stronger through the trains.
I want to add lang, Master, I guess, kasi what you're saying is yung perception of failure is relative. Diba? It's also relative. Like, for example, some
Yeah,
people feel like they're a failure because ang benchmark nila is, I don't know, somebody who is super successful. Pero, sometimes their benchmark are people on social media, Instagram, and they feel like if they don't compare to that, they're already a failure. So I understand what you're saying. Yung perception is really important. It's very relative.
in Tagalog, you have the tama,
Hmm.
tumpak, and wasto. Or wasto and tumpak. So there's a truth at seven la tama, but it's not really wasto and then not tumpak. So there are different grades of perception of every word that we use. So what I don't want to hear is not always the reality because I just want to block myself. I'm not listening to take the easy out. But it's
Hmm.
reality, but I don't want to see it. So there's sometimes denial in the aspect of perception. And that's the problem because the United States, as I said, a lot of my clients and my friends don't have work anymore.
Okay.
So they might not succeed in solving a problem because the government is the one that's having a problem. But they are a side effect of a failure of something bigger than them. So that's why
Negative.
failing time is a bigger thing than individual personal life.
Thank you so much, Master. Carol?
Yes. If we're to see this moment as, eradicate natin kunyari yung word na failure and try to see it
Mm.
as a learning experience or a challenge, kung paano tayo matututo and how we could learn more. How important is it to stand together when it comes to overcoming challenging times? Bianca or Saps, maybe you'd like to
Yeah,
answer?
yeah, I'd like to answer that. I think right now, especially because we are going through, as you say, failing times, it's very important um, to have some sort of support system. I think that if you do have family or whatever you see as family, be that your friends or your colleagues, or well, in my case, immediate family. Um, um, I think that that really helps cushion the blow. For starters, there's always somebody there that you can air out your concerns, your fears, and just bounce back. You know, have conversation. I mean, you know, we're all humans, and you know, the whole, especially now with COVID and the whole social distancing thing. I think it really has taken away something from our humanity in life and even in death.
Mm.
It's really, you know, it's a very strange and awkward time, I think. And I mean, I'm sure there are people who are living on their own, who are socially distanced from their family, who are thriving and are doing okay. But I'm almost sure they would love to have somebody with them or be able to have access and see their family again. You know,
Mm.
sometimes you know the touch, the hug, all of that
Mm.
matters because that I believe, you know, when you feel that affection from people. Um, you start to release all your happy hormones and the dopamine, and that's for me essential in coping with this sort of stress that everybody's under right now.
There's
Right.
actually there's actually an article that I'd like to pull up where it says, the divided world is failing COVID-19. And this
Okay.
is from a UN chief. Now he's saying that UN General Antonio Guterres expressed frustration at how uncoordinated countries were in responding to the viral outbreak. He laments that if countries had worked together, more could have done. So this is a classic example of how not standing together really affects you during failing times. No, as countries don't stand together, kanya-kanyang diskarte, iba-iba yung plano. Some countries end up, having a really, really bad mortality rate.
That's right. And actually, even in the Philippines, Stephen, if you think about
Mm.
it, we're the longest already. Highest number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in East Asia
Yes.
and number two in the region behind Indonesia in deaths related to the
Mm.
disease. So right now, dahil sobra na rin prolonged, all the more we feel the isolation, we feel, the disconnect in this crisis. And as VP Lenny Robredo also called for unity and initiative in quelling the pandemic, she said, I think it's not enough that just because we already have hospitals, beds, and funeral parlors, all we need to do is just wait for a vaccine.
That's right.
Very interesting.
Okay, so right now let's pull up a video question that everybody can answer naman. Let's pull up that question right now.
What if someone is ashamed of their failure in their relationship and career? How can she can ask for support from other people?
Okay. The question naman is with regards to career and relationships. So Saps, I think you can take this one. How do I ask for support from the people around me? Because we mentioned that everybody should stand together during times of failure and failing times. How do I ask support from the people around me? Because normally nahihiya because they feel worthless or ashamed to ask for help.
I think the one thing I'm going to say here is when we judge ourselves, when we always have to learn to ask for help. But sadly, you know, when we do ask for help, people are so quick to pounce and judge
Mm.
you. So I think when one wants to ask for support, make sure that if you're going to ask it from people, make sure that they're not going to judge you for whatever it is that you want help with. But I think for me, where I always feel is, first of all, are we judging ourselves?
Mm.
Because if you're judging yourself for failing, then automatically you would think that others are gonna start judging you as well. So always ask yourself, where are you coming from? Are you
Mm.
are you judging yourself? Are you ashamed of anything? Because if you are, then it is going to transcend in the way you're going to ask people. So make sure that you stop judging yourself, and in turn find people that will understand you, where you can draw support from. And I think we need to try to eradicate that word, being ashamed, because there's no harm in asking for help.
Mm. Well, I mean, of course, it's easier said than done, Saps. No? Yung sabihin natin na, let's not be ashamed. And yung sabi mo kanina na let's not judge ourselves, because normally we're the first person to judge ourselves, right? So,
Right.
Can I say something?
yes, go ahead, Bianca.
Yeah. The problem, and I think this also kind of answers the last question you asked, right? I think also the big problem with the word failure is that people are fearful of it because it really chips away at their ego. But I think you really have to learn how to separate the two, right? Separate it from your identity. You are not your failure. It is really just part of the journey. I think people have to start to remove stigma of what failure is. And for anybody out there who feels like they are losing in life or failing, or that they've lost or whatever, I just want I want to put it out there that when you ask somebody for help, it's really not a sign of weakness. When you acknowledge that you need help somewhere, it's a sign that you want to learn, or you want to move on, and you want to get stronger. And it's actually a sign of strength. Like, that's how I see it. I think that keeping it in yourself is really more of a sign of weakness and not being able to accept that. So we really need to remove the stigma, I think, for the younger generation, because I feel like the younger generation feels fear more, right? They're so scared to fail.
Right.
So just before Karel pulls up before Karel pulls up the poll. So just to tie up what Saps and Bianca just said. So it's not judging yourself, and I think to connect it with what Bianca said is, don't judge yourself, because you can separate yourself from the failure. You are not the failure, diba?
Yeah.
It's it's an isolated thing. Okay, cool.
May I
Ang ganda
add
nun.
something, Stephen?
Hey, go ahead, Master.
As you have said, it's easier said than done. So there are 8 types of patients, but in general there are 3: people with power, people with love, emotional, and intelligence. The Einstein would not feel any guilt. They just mentalize things, and they sort it out by problem-solving skills, and they go for the right therapists and professional, and they'll go. The George Bush or the Duterte type would use it more like ego type. They will crush the failure by overshadowing the problem. The Mother Teresa is where the problems are, because they're more guilty, they're more emotionally strong, but mentally weaker. So they think that failing is bad. So that's why some of you said that don't say failure. So if the person is Mother Teresa, you have to increase her willpower, so that the will balance the heart, so that you can be more confident about what you say. And finding the right professionals to help you is good, not to chismis or gossip about your failure, because not all people can support you. They might even laugh at you or think that you are a failure. So that increases your curse to fail. So finding the right professional who can alchemize with your energy, and also increasing the willpower, so that you do not feel bad about your failure, or go with somebody who can really pull you up until you can stabilize.
So find the right person to alchemize your sabi niya, find the right person to alchemize your failure. Is that what you said, Master?
To alchemize your quality, to augment anything you cannot do. For
So
example,
dapat tama yung energy ng isang tao with regards to you.
they will strategize and to mentalize the project of succeeding if you want it to be a success.
Correct. Kasi mahirap
Okay.
sa ata, Stephen, yung kung pagka nilalapitan mo, mas toxic pa. Meron ka na nga
Tama.
pinagdadaanan, failure na nga, lalapit ka pa sa isang tao who's not
Nega ka
vulnerable.
naman, Negatron pa.
Oo,
Dapat,
negative na, pinuput down ka palalo, di ba?
okay,
So,
tama
yes,
naman.
pwede ko bang i-call out na yung
Yes,
meron tayong
go ahead.
poll, yung FB poll natin kanina.
Go
So,
ahead,
meron
Carol.
tayong results. And I think, just to talk about, i-rehash natin, recap natin yung nasabi kanina na instead of just looking at it as failure, these are people who were so brave and
Mm,
courageous to experience their challenges. So there's 75% who said yes. Yes, we've experienced failures in life. And
yeah.
25% said no.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yung 25% na nag-no, either they think like Bianca and Saps na failure is a learning experience, or talagang 25% perfect sila. Wala silang failure their whole life. So, galing.
Siguro major, no? Wala pang major.
Wala pang major. Wala pa sigurong major. Okay. Sige. All right. Let's go into the second part of the slant naman, Karel.
Okay. This is where we get to
So,
talk about how these failing times affect us personally as we deal with the fallout of the crisis. Now, ito, marami pong mga famous cases and famous people who have rebounded after their
mm,
failure. I don't know if you know si Cecilio K. Pedro. He's the owner of Happy Toothpaste, yung Lamoyan
of course,
Corporation.
alam natin, happy toothpaste. Yes.
Exactly. And he faced bankruptcy and failure.
Mm,
We've all heard about that. And because of that, he learned how to cope and bounce back, establishing, of
mm,
course, his Happy Toothpaste. Alam din naman natin si Anna Wintour. Do you know Anna Wintour? The editor-in-chief, I believe, of Vogue magazine. And
correct.
she was actually fired from a junior editing position for having too edgy photos and ended up becoming the
Mm,
editor in chief after that failure. Ang daming
mm.
ganyang stories, Stephen. We'll have the Oprah Winfrey's of the world,
Oh.
who had to go through even abuse and
Steve Jobs lost his company,
discrimination.
di ba? Steve Jobs lost his company, yung Apple.
Exactly. And even
Oh,
Thomas Edison, si Master Delpe mentioned him a while ago, the inventor of the light bulb, and he failed 1,000 times. And he said, I learned 1,000 ways how not to do it.
yeah.
So,
Okay, so let's hear more naman of these stories and talk about the ways to overcome failure mula sa ating mga guests. So, what are your survival tips when it comes to failure and failing times? So, let's start this time with Saps. Saps, what is your advice, survival tips when it comes to failure and failing times?
I would say be kind to yourself. You know,
Okay.
I would probably say whatever it is that you feel, try to journal. Try to write how you feel, write it down, everything that you want to say it in, put it in a journal. Be kind to yourself. Um, you know, Carell said a while ago, the way we speak to ourselves is, should I say this? It's quite horrible. We're not
No, do
kind
it.
to
Say it.
ourselves. We're not nice
Yeah,
to
we're not.
ourselves.
Mm,
So I think start with small tips, such as be kind to yourself, because look, failure is inevitable. We're
mm,
all going to go through failure at some point. But where
mm.
I'm coming from is I like to see it as a learning experience. If it's not, what can I learn from this and how can I move on without feeling, any hurt or anything? Because I always believe if it's not meant for me, it's not meant for me.
Mm,
And I like to be kind to myself, because if I'm not kind to myself, then I can't expect others to be nice to me or
that's
kind
right.
to me. So
Don't be too hard on
start
yourself,
with
diba?
yourself. Don't be hard on yourself.
Mm,
This line, I'm sure you've heard it before. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay
mm,
to go through your emotions. It's okay to go through a lot of things, a lot of negative things, because it's a part of life. Can't always be positive in life.
that's right.
If someone says, it was positive 24/7, 365 days a year, it's impossible. You're going to go through this, but how you're going to rise from this situation is all that matters. Be nice to
Okay.
yourself. Be kind to yourself. Speak nice
right.
words. Speak kind words to yourself. And
Oh,
these are just my few tips. And start to journal. See what comes up. And it's better that it's out there rather than it's in there.
okay. So yeah, keep a journal and be kind to yourself. Nice.
I,
Okay.
I like that too because it's all about vulnerability too. You being
Mm,
compassionate, being kind to yourself. It takes courage to do that. It
yeah.
because we always prioritize other people, how they feel and how they think. So maybe I could ask another question right now, if that's okay. Maybe
Yes.
to Bianca, how do you deal with burnout? And if someone else is going through a financial downturn or joblessness and paranoia, what's your advice for people like that right now?
Yeah, that's a hard question because there's a lot of people that are going through that right now. Especially a lot of people have lost their jobs, and I feel almost as lost as they are. Um, right now it's kind of beyond our control. We're losing jobs. It's not your fault. So, sort of what Saps has said is you have to be a little kind to yourself. But of course, it's more than that, because if you have no income, that also equals mortality, and that's a tough situation to be in. So I really sympathize and empathize with those people that are facing that right now.
Yeah. Bianca, I want to add
Uh,
lang to that question.
yeah.
Sorry. I want to add to that question of Karel because you're also a businesswoman. You own your own
Yes.
business successfully at that wholesome table. A lot of the Filipinos now, they feel like they failed because nagsarado yung mga businesses nila. So how can you also advise them with regards to this?
Well, okay. So right now, currently we closed Wholesome Table, but that is a temporary. It was a
Mm,
temporary decision, right? Like I don't see
mm,
that part as a failure.
correct.
For my business, I don't see it as a failure, but actually it was more of a strategy, a
Mm,
survival strategy, to keep it alive. So, many times you have to seize in order to move forward.
correct. One
Sometimes you're
step
going to have
back,
to take two
Yep.
steps back
two
in
steps
order to
back.
take 10 steps forward.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Um, you know, a lot of people I know have lost their businesses, have closed their business for good because of the situation, because of the lockdowns. But that's not their failure. Okay, so they
Mm,
can't take it personally. So
mm,
that would be uh, the best thing to do is to find a way to pick yourself back up,
mm.
and to keep on trying and keep on
Yeah,
walking. And
yeah.
if I may add to what I really love what Sap said, is be kind to yourself. I think right now especially people have to learn how to be kind to themselves, because all of this is out of our hands.
Mm,
As much as we'd love to try and do things, there's really only so much we can do, so we cannot take it personally. Other tips that I have for um, uh, surviving failures, so to speak, is try to change your perspective about it, which is what I mentioned in the beginning. Um,
Yeah.
it does not mean that you are weak or incapable. I try to look at these things as like a practice round for
mm.
better things in life.
I
Right.
like that. Practice round.
Yes.
Tama yun.
Yeah, yeah,
Sparring. Sparring muna before the
Oh.
main fight.
even relationships, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Failed relationships, it's just practice for
Oh, that's right. For the
it's just
real thing.
practice.
You have to have so
Also,
many
you
failed
gotta learn from your
relationships before you
mistakes,
find the one.
I
right?
used to
No,
call
You
it
know what?
research work.
and normally people get married after a really really bad relationship before that. Parang yun yung
Mm,
practice round nila just before getting married. I noticed that.
Well, you learn, right? You
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
learn. You learn from
definitely.
all of these things. You know
Mm,
better what you want and what you're not going to compromise. So, for me, that's the best thing, is you've got to learn. And if you learn,
mm.
then you didn't fail.
Perspective
And
talaga. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, master. We mentioned a while ago some techniques, Sapna mentioned journaling and all of that, but what are the most effective tools and techniques to thrive and survive during the most challenging time, which is now naman during failing times? What are your tips and techniques, tools
I
and
think,
techniques?
yeah, one size doesn't fit all. So you have to see objectively the situation, because if you generalize everything, it becomes a weak solution. So
Hmm.
there are times that people come to me as the problem. So for problems, it's easy because you have many solutions. Just brainstorm and have consensus. When a problem becomes a crisis, it's not as easy because you have very minimal solutions to it. So I would always see if the crisis is crisis rescue, where the person is having suicide and you rescue the person first. Or you can do a crisis therapy where the person needs healing and a lot of explanation and brainstorming. Or the person can go for a long term, which is called the crisis management. So most people are either crisis rescue, crisis therapy, or crisis management. Like the other day, I have a big problem because my worker crashed and cut his
Oh
fork.
wow.
So I see the finger dangling, and I saw one of the fingers lost in the hole. So I was looking for it to bring
Oh
him to the
wow.
hospital. So I was able to find it after 1 hour. The problem is with COVID-19, to bring him to the hospital to another province to have surgery, I have
Uh,
to put my strings with the mayor, the chief of police to get permit to travel across the province. His crisis is how to revive his fingers in pain with a lot of blood. My problem is how to bring him to the hospital. So the crisis of one person can be a problem of one, or the problem of one can be a crisis. It's not really all the same. As I said, there are 8 types of people. The Mother Teresa would deal with emotions differently from Oprah Winfrey or Dalai Lama or Bill Gates. So when you look at people, you need to see where they come from and the context by which they are suffering and pain. Compassion has to be placed on certain order of relativity. And so I think willpower is common to all people. They need willpower to finish what you start. People have self-control, self-discipline based on willpower. That is one of the missing components of most people in crisis. They don't have the willpower, so they do not continue even with the solutions that were given to them. So willpower and self-discipline. Another one is, of course, compassion to yourself, but it's hard if you're in pain with no fingers. You're thinking of how to work again if you are a laborer. So his problem is how to work and feed his family. For me, it's how to bring him to the hospital. So that's a little traumatic experience for both of us. In COVID-19, you cannot do the same way as normal times. And last but not the list is really to be objective, to be clear what is going on. Most people might see the objectivity, but they do not express that because they are in denial. So you have to be objective, like how much money you left for you to live. Do you have only 3 months cash? Or do you still have 1 year cash flow? So if you don't see the reality, people would take the easy way, which is not the best highway. But the objective is checklist, and consult people who are experts on certain situations and hear all the suggestions and decide at the end what you want to do based on your capability and your own concern. So I think objectivity, additional willpower, I said compassion to yourself, not to be self-critical, but also having enough support for you to have, like I call many people that I've helped in the past. That's why I can pull the strings. But most people invest in other people in good times. So in crisis time, they cannot call anybody because they have not sown anything to harvest. For me, helping as many people anytime is the best because social capital and social
okay.
asset is investment before you
Yeah.
harvest. So I
So
think that
master, basically what you're saying is have a crisis management plan for your failure. Diba? Parang treat your personal failures as a failure in a company. Then you'll have a crisis management plan. Ganyan. And be objective. Just analyze it talaga.
yeah, if a person is committing suicide, you cannot do crisis management. You have to do crisis rescue, which is a total different ball game than crisis. There are times that the person has been traumatized. So after a person has been spit in COVID-19, I do a post-traumatic healing to the person who had COVID because the trauma is more than the disease at the end.
Yeah. Okay, si Master kasi has certain modalities that he does to treat different people. Okay, let's jump
Right.
into ano na. We have a couple of
Oo, ang dami.
questions. Sige,
Mga tanong
excited. Sige.
dito.
Pull in the first one, Karel. Sige, ask
Itong
mo.
first one, sabi dito ni Angelo Simon, how do I change my mindset to avoid blaming others for my failures? Sino kaya pwedeng sumagot niyan? Because sometimes we do blame others for our failures, right? So,
Actually,
would
most of
you,
the time, we blame others except
that's right, I
ourselves.
failed. Someone's fault, right? So, maybe
Sige,
Sam, I would
Sap,
love
sige,
to,
Sap.
yeah,
I would love to answer that, provided I don't get thrown out again because of poor connection.
Sige,
okay.
don't
How do
worry.
I
It's
change
not a
my
failure
mindset
if you get
to
cut.
avoid? Okay, everything starts with the mind. Understand that, but also, you know, we don't like to, we don't like to blame ourselves. we don't like to take responsibility and accountability. And it goes, start off with something such as, I I think I would like to say, take responsibility for your
Mm.
life. It's very easy to blame other people. However, when you do that, you're never going to learn anything in life. As the saying goes, as
Mm.
you keep pointing fingers, more fingers are being pointed back to you. So take
Mm.
responsibility, accountability for your life. It is your life, it is your journey.
Mm.
Lessons are to be learned, and go just take it one step at a time. You're not going to figure everything out in a day or a week. So see how you're going to navigate all of this. But
Mm.
try to ask yourself, the most important question is, why is it that it's so easy to blame other people as opposed to just taking responsibility for yourself?
Yeah. So
Right.
yeah, in short, what
Just
you're saying
always
talaga is,
be, go inward all the time and ask yourself the
mm.
question, why do I keep doing this?
Mm.
It's always the why this, and keep going until you reach the root. And then
Mm.
from there, it's going to be much easier to change your mindset. Start with
Yeah.
acknowledging that you actually do that. We
Yeah.
can't change
No.
something we're not oblivious to.
Mm.
Mhm.
So basically, just own up to it. No matter what people say, di ba? Sabi nga nila, it's easy, control the things that you can control. And the things that you can
Right.
control
Yeah.
are the things with yourself. Di ba? You can't control how other people treat you. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you so much for that, Sabs. Anybody wants to add to that answer, or we move on to the next question?
Again, I
Mm.
I would just like to add there, I think again it starts with your own perception of what failure is. So if
Mm.
you remove the stigma of failure being such a negative thing,
Mm.
and you look at it as, uh,
Learning.
yeah, like again a learning experience, and I hate to have to keep repeating that, but if you look at it in that way, then it will be much easier to own up to it and say, okay, this is
Mm.
something it will be much easier to accept, because it's not going to chip away at that ego of yours,
Mm.
that ego
Yeah.
that is telling you to blame it on the next person. So,
Right.
and I think that this is why, like in my own household, I try to remove that
Mm.
word, so that for my kids at least, they grow up not fearing
Mm.
um, making mistakes so much.
In fact, shouldn't you even thank the other people who caused you that failure because you actually learned?
You learned, yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes you thank your exes because of them you became a better partner, di ba? May mga ganun eh.
Marami
yeah,
nagpapasalamat sa'yo, Stephen. Because
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stephen, can I say something there?
Go ahead,
There
Master.
are always two sides of the story. People
Yeah.
only want to listen to one. That's why it's good to hire people like SAP or professionals who can listen to both sides of husband and wife. Because there are
Mm.
two sides of the story. Because when you hear the husband, it's like he is saying, I'm a victim of my wife. When you hear the wife that I have been angry at my husband because he's really nagging me. But as a
Mm.
coach, you have the two sides of the story. So when you mediate a conflict between husband and wife, you have to tell them both stories. That's why sometimes having to listen to the victim sometimes is not the best practice. You have to listen to both so that you don't take side. The women will always side the women also. The men will side,
Mm.
or the Mother Teresa will side the emotional victim rather
Mm.
than seeing the two story. You have to be an neutral point. Again, I said be objective. To be objective, you have to use the heart to feel and the mind to think, and your intuition, if necessary, to sense, or your instincts to sense the current situation. Because the complaint can be 10 years ago, but they have the old story and the old narrative is still until now, even though it's gone. So the
Mm.
old narrative of complainers is already a disease or a discomfort. It's already a sickness. So you have to listen whether it's a gossip, a disease, or the person that's compulsive complainer. So when I listen to people, I have to see the two sides of the story and my own neutral story.
Okay, got it. Okay, next question. Karel, you wanna bring that up?
sige.
Uh,
Next is from Alessa Rosario. Is there a case as taking too much responsibility for a
Too much
failure?
naman.
Oo, too much naman. Yung ako na lang lagi ang mali, di ba?
Oh,
At
mga
what
martir.
point,
Mga martir yan.
oo,
It's
ako
my
na
fault.
naman.
Everything is my fault.
At what point does owning up to your mistake turn self-destructive? Very
Tama, tama.
interesting
Okay.
yun.
Again, let's go with Saps muna. Saps, are you with us? I think she's having audio problems right now. Okay, Bianca, actually even Karel, you can take a crack at this because you're an NLP coach, diba? So you can also
Right.
give some tips. So, but yeah, go ahead. Siguro, let's go with Bianca first, and then Karel, and then Master.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if that has to do with a certain personality type, right? Like there are some people who always blame themselves, and I'm sure there are different personalities that fit that mold. So I would think that there is such a thing as taking too much responsibility. I think that happens with a lot of people who get, I don't know, like gaslighted in a relationship, right? Like if you're surrounding yourself with, I don't know, like narcissistic people or something, and you always think like, oh, it was my fault, or you start second guessing. You start to
So,
second guess
so there is
the
a case of too
situation.
much, no? Blaming yourself too much.
Or,
Saps,
or
are you back with us, Sapna? Saps, can you hear
Yeah,
us?
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Unless
go
you're
ahead.
with an, yeah, I can hear you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So is there a case? Yes. Unless you're with a narc, you're gonna keep. They have this way of making you feel like everything is your fault, and it really plays with your mind. And whatever I could hear from what Bianca said, yeah, gaslighting is something that's happening so much now because a lot of people deflect their emotions. They don't want to take responsibility, so it's like you're gonna take responsibility for this relationship or this friendship or anything. So it starts off, I think, really from childhood. If that's who you are, then you're always going to be attracting such people into your life, and taking responsibility is the only way you know how, and you kind of want to just take it on to keep the peace. But then what does that do to you? It
But
eats
when it's
away at
yung
you.
Saps, in question niya is when do you know it's becoming self-destructive? When is it owning? When does owning up become too much na daw?
When it's disrupting your peace already, when it's turning you into somebody you're not,
Okay,
when
yeah,
it's
okay.
when it's chipping away at your soul, then that's
Right.
when you know that enough is enough. But
Tama, tama.
it's easy for us to tell the person that, but they have to come to that realization that enough, I've had enough. But they stick around because they don't feel that they love themselves, and they need to hear it from other people. Oh, I'm going to stay in that relationship even though I'm hurting because he loves me. But here's the thing, you don't love yourself, because if you did love yourself, you're not going to stay in that relationship. So again, here we go again. It's easy for us to sit here and judge, but they need to go
Yeah.
through it, and they need to have that aha moment and say, enough is enough. I need to get out of this.
Yeah, they should realize na they're turning into somebody else. Kasi they know naman themselves, diba? They know who they are.
Yeah.
Self-awareness is key, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I insert a little bit my comment there, Stephen?
Yes, go ahead, Master.
It is okay until it is your own blood that you see in your hands. Because I realized that yesterday. Oh, it's okay, but if it is your own finger cut and you will never have it again, because you're not a lizard, you will say, "Oh my God, this is really bad." I have many patients and clients every day, and as I said, there are 8 types of patients. The George Bush and the Donald Trump will always blame anybody. So the American and the colonized people who colonize people, they tend to blame on others for their misery, like their oil glut or something. Now, the Mother Teresa and a lot of Asian culture do take the guilt upon themselves. Either you become rich, you're guilty about money, or you are not fired, so you're guilty of some people fired and you're not fired. So I do a lot of this healing. So there are people who does impose their guilt upon themselves, and they are the Messiah complex. the martyr complex. They just want to absorb everybody's trauma and become the garbage can. So they become victims of other people's misery. Yes, there are problems because I see a lot of people with autoimmune disorder, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, a lot of acidity, and a lot of many problems that deals with the heart. Just come sometimes when you are so guilty about your own sin, like mea culpa on the heart, and you absorb other people's problems, especially the mother type people like Mother Teresa.
Nagmamanifest na physically.
The Einstein would be more object to see, is this a problem or is it a situation to be resolved, as some of us were saying. So when you lose that objectivity and clarity, you either blame yourself or you blame on others. So again, the problem of humanity today is a lack of objectivity, a lack of practicality, and a lack of real realization where we are and where we're going and where we're failing. So I think diseases can be attributed to a lot of self-destructive behavior. Guilt will paralyze you. Even the fear that you are not doing enough for others, like a mother, is gonna punish you. So there are many complications I see in many people who are self-destructive by blaming oneself.
Okay, so it's self-destructive when you're already starting to get physical manifestations.
Yes.
Mga
Especially
sugat, mga ano, you know.
Autoimmune disorder, even insulin resistance.
Okay, that's true. Insulin, I heard that. Insulin resistance, that's true. Okay, we have another question here from Earl Mayuba. And the question is, what can I do if I'm trying to help someone take responsibility for their own failure, but they refuse to? Yeah, from the other side naman. Bianca, you want to take a crack at this? Karel, kahit ikaw, take a crack at this.
Ang daming advice eh.
If I'm trying to help somebody, ayaw niya.
I think that if that person, for me, I think that if that person were really bothered, and as Master said, that they're already manifesting it physically, like not losing sleep or whatever, they're already stressing out. Like I would always defer them to a professional.
Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah, because I'm not a professional therapist. I'm not, like SAPs, but I would always defer them to a professional and somebody that they're comfortable with. Or actually, what can I do if I'm trying to help them? Because I think that many times that is a very deep thing that needs to be unearthed in many people if they can't accept it. Again, that's that's their ego. So yeah.
It's such a hard discussion to have though with your friend, no? And I get what you're saying, no. Sometimes you think you're being a real friend by giving advice, but actually you're doing work. So your advice mo is refer them to a professional. But when you refer them up to a professional, it already sounds bad when your friend says, "What, you think I'm crazy? Do you think I'm
Oh, that's true.
How do you manage that?
Yeah, and Stephen, honestly, people will resist if it's imposed. If you tell them, you have to take responsibility for this. And a while ago, just reminded me of a conversation I had with my 7-year-old son. I just asked him, what's your part in this? Because you ask questions instead of impose and push and
I like
shout.
that. I like that. Sige. Saps, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, all that is correct, but I think I'm going to go deep down. I'm going to deep dive a little bit, and I'm going to ask, when we tell somebody that they need to take responsibility for something that they did, I think it's very easy for us to say, but when we get upset and there's emotion, what is it bringing up in you? When you speak that way to another person, it says much about you than it does actually about the other person. So when we're forcing somebody to take ownership or responsibility for something that they did, and it's kind of disturbing our peace. Okay? It has more to do about that person when peace has been disrupted rather than the other person. So this is where I invite you to go inward and ask yourself, why is it bothering you?
Nice.
Because people come into our lives. People come into our lives to teach us something.
Exactly.
Now, sorry to say this, but this person may be trying to teach you something. But again, I mean, I love Bianca for this when she said the word ego. I do say that a lot. When it's hurting your ego, you kind of will want to push everybody.
Yeah.
Why? But it's really your ego It's
Ganda
time for
ng
you to
point mo,
look
Saps.
inward. Why is it disrupting your peace?
Ang ganda naman. Bakit ako affected, di ba?
Bakit
Bakit ako
sobrang
affected na may
affected?
failure
Oo.
ka? That's actually a good point. So you have to look at
Correct.
yourself first, no?
So
But
you
again,
agree?
consult a professional. Don't do it yourself or others. Okay,
May I
after...
pitch something there, Karen, Stephen?
Sige, Master. Before we wrap the segment up, go ahead,
As
Master.
it's done already, Sap, may I intervene? I think there are three ways of doing things. If the person is committing suicide, you cannot negotiate at that time. You need by force of speed, getting a professional to take or a police to say, hey, please don't do that. Because negotiation does not work when a person is drunk or having drug addiction.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
there are times that negotiation and nice words and love doesn't work. Now, if the child is gonna shoot somebody, you cannot do it with love at that time. He is already disturbed and lost. So you have to do your force, grab the gun, and make sure that he doesn't shoot you or shoot himself. So there's a time that speed and the element of time is not in your favor. You need to do it abruptly and by force. You cannot apologize later, okay? It's instead of crying over a person who's dead. So by force and speed, you need that in some situation. Now, if you're Mother Teresa, you can use your love to hear the story and listen every day for 1 week. And then they will upload everything and they will feel better. So that is the love type of listening and engage in conversation. So if you're a conversationalist, you listen to the story, they upload all their pressure, and then they feel better. But you are the garbage can. You have to accept that you
Yeah, you have to listen lang.
now,
Makinig ka
if
lang.
you are intelligent, then you go for a negotiation by which diplomacy and nice words and NLP can be working or coaching. Like Sap can use her life mentoring, life coaching, or ask questions. Like I would say, may I request? Instead of saying do this, I would say, may I request to intervene if you allow me this? So you can use a request. They will not resist you when it's a may request. Or say, can I suggest something? So you can use it for children or adults, it works. Or you can tell a narrative of what happened before your friends. This is the story I want you to listen first, and this is what happened. You can be a parallel story to the story of the person. Sometimes storytelling can work, sometimes conversation can work. But in situations where it's life and death, you need the force and speed, and you even have to grab the knife and get hurt as long as he doesn't kill himself. So by power and speed, by love, by intellect.
Wow.
Yeah, I
That
see
is so-
everybody nodding in agreement. So, Karel, I guess you agree. Diba?
I do.
Storytelling, kailangan let that person, just open up. Don't try to give advice right away.
Yeah. And use your
Sometimes
strength.
you just need to
Diba?
listen.
That's right. Just be there to listen. Yeah. Sabi nga ni Master, be the garbage can. That sounds bad, but it's actually a good thing, right? After getting all the points and perspectives, now we'd like to bring everybody to a segment we call Restart. Bigyan naman natin ng spotlight yung mga guests natin to figure out how we hold strong through these failing times. So guys, for those unfamiliar, this is part of the show where we give our guests 2 minutes each to share their ideas on how we can all restart after failure and failing times. So we'd like to start it off with, let's start it off with Master Delpe naman this time.
Well, it depends what level of intelligence that the person has. So for intelligent people, I always say have a plan B or plan C. Like say in difficult times, have a plan. For example, I go for rural life. Like I came from the US and then I said, this is time to go back to the Philippines and go rural. So I put a village in the mountains. So I have a backup plan. So that's how I do. For mainstream humanity who wants only the easy way, I would say, do your best to cope up and hopefully it's right and I listen to you, a conversation. So I think in difficult times, you have to plan for the worst, but hope for the best. In normal times, hope for the best and plan for the worst. And I think people will not escape. And in one's life, you will have always the discomfort, even from success. So if people make a successful life, they have the discomfort that comes with success. If people don't have money, there's a discomfort that comes without money. So in this life, one of the things I found out is people always have challenges in life. So being prepared with skill sets, having more willpower, having more objectivity, having more friends to help you, and having to save for the rainy day also is good, being frugal and so on. So I combine the good virtues of the Chinese, hard work, the heart of the Filipino, and the happiness of the Filipino, the order and structure of the American and the European, and the strictness of the Japanese, because this is where I learn a lot of my stuff. So I think there's no one shortcut thing, but the more advanced you are, the more you prepare for the future. For people who want to live daily, that's only what they want to do. Like the goat wants only to eat every day, that's fine. But for more advanced humanity, like a lot of the speakers, I think there's a need to plan ahead. They need to have plan B, plan C, and there's a need to have social network that can support you in difficult times. And of course, there's always a way where you can engage in the conversation, like ReStart, to be able to learn more and self-learn, unlearn and relearn. So I have opened up the International Convention for Higher Consciousness, a platform to discuss all of these topics that we're talking about in an international forum where we have 6 platforms to talk about all these topics. And that will be, can I plug it in, Stephen? November 8th and November 15th. And this covers 30 countries, and it will be 8 p.m. in Philippine time to 12:30 a.m. So that's my take here, and I'd like to invite all of your listeners and all of the speakers. In my humble opinion, this is a good thing to restart.
Nice. Thank you so much,
Nice.
Master.
Yes, thank you, Master Delpe. And of course, we would love to hear from Saps. 2 minutes, Saps.
Oh, I think Saps dropped off. Maybe we can have Bianca first.
Bianca. Yes. We
She's
would
been
love to
having
hear you.
a bad
Yeah,
connection.
that
Okay,
was
go ahead,
really
Bianca.
nice. Yeah, that was really nice. I love listening to that, Master. Thank you for that. So, I mean, that's a very nice philosophical, I guess, sort of way of looking at it. I want to maybe throw in my perspective as a mother, maybe approach it like how I would my kids. And I guess my tips for, like I said earlier in the program, I like to raise them with like a growth mindset. So that's why I remove failure from our language here at home. And I guess my tips on how to restart would be, again, like I said earlier, is change your perspective about the word failure, right? So if you change that point of view and turn it into something positive, like a learning experience, then it becomes easier to move forward. So, or like I said earlier, like look at it as like a practice round. So, my number one tip would be change your perspective first, and then learn from your mistakes, and you adapt from there. See what you did wrong, and then adjust and try again. Try not to make the same mistakes, and you start growing. I like to look at it like I said earlier, that this is all part of your journey. And I know it sounds cliche, but I really like to think that wherever we are in life at that moment is where we're supposed to be. And um, even with relationships, whoever is in your life right now is meant to be there. And there's a reason why you meet these people, and there's a reason why you spend time with them, and there's a reason why they leave your life. So if you take each of those encounters as a learning experience, then you just keep growing. So with my children, I tell them that if you stop, failure is all part of life, and you're going to be making mistakes. You're going to continue to make mistakes, and once you stop doing that, though, you're going to stop learning, and you're going to stop growing in your mind. So just look at it in a different way. I also try to tell them to stop seeking approval, or I like to tell people, if you try to stop seeking approval from other people, then it becomes, I think, a little easier on your ego. I think that especially nowadays, I think Stephen mentioned earlier, a lot of people like to compare themselves to others. So you can't please everybody. So stop trying to please everybody, and don't take things too personally. Like I said, you are not your failure, and your failure does not is separate from your identity. It will not identify you. So just pick up the pieces again and keep moving. That would be my advice.
Thanks, Bianx. Wow. Bianca, dami mong quotable quotes. I was trying to write it down, but wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
for sure, I'm taking out failure from my encyclopedia tonight. Tatanggalin ko na yan because of you, Bianx. And I like when you said you are meant to be where you are right now. Ganda nun. And Master, of course, I like what you said when you said unlearn and learn. Diba? Start restart, kumbaga. But
Yeah.
then it's not bad to unlearn as well. Karel, ang dami nating questions sa sa box,
Ang
but
dami.
we don't have time anymore. I'm hoping that
Mm.
we can answer these questions on the Restart Wellness group. So, guys, please join the Restart Wellness group so we can answer this question. But in the meantime, we'd like to pull up the second poll results kanina. So, tinanong namin, if you have never doubted your ability to survive failure. And wow, I'm very, very happy naman to say that 54%, no, sorry, not very happy, but like at least it's not so bad, right? 54% have doubted, and 46% have not doubted themselves. So it's almost 50-50 right there. And it's still a good sign because at least we're not seeing a huge number from our audience thinking that, they cannot survive failure, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. You want to pull up well, let's thank our guests muna first and foremost. Bianca and Master, thank you very much for joining us. This has been a very interesting episode. Initially, I thought it was going to be a little bit medyo confusing because failure, failing time, such big
Mm-mm.
concepts. But you guys really brought light to the topic, and I thank you guys so much. And I think Karel also
Yes.
contributed a lot to this.
Mhm. And I
So
Thank
thank
learned
you.
so much from the perspectives that are varying from Master Delpe and of course Bianca and Saps earlier. So
Yes.
ang ganda ng infusion of those different methodologies and backgrounds. So thank you so much, Master Delpe. Thank you, Bianca and
You.
Saps. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Wherever you
Thank
are,
you.
thank you.
Thank you,
We
Bianca,
love
for
that.
your
Thank you,
notes. They're
Master.
very
I learned a
useful
lot.
for parents.
Okay.
So
Wrap it
right
up.
now, yeah, I think ang dami natin natutunan no from tonight's show, Stephen, and we would love to just do a recap and just see the things that we've learned and picked up from Saps and of course from Bianca and Master Delpe. A couple of things. Nagustuhan ko talaga yung sinabi kanina ni Saps when she said failure is inevitable. You can't
Yeah.
prevent it from happening, right?
Mm.
But and then also Master Delpe was talking about how we can also seek the right people to go to whenever we are failing, and Bianca changing your perspectives and even eradicating the word failure from your vocabulary. But let me
Mm.
read these things.
Go,
Failure,
go.
sabi ni Master Delpe, failure in ordinary times is much easier than failing during failing times. Well, that is quite obvious right now. In normal times, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. In difficult times, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That's really brilliant. And the best experience is to become wiser and stronger after overcoming failure. So don't miss that. It's a big price to pay, but
Mm.
it's worth
Kasi
it.
kung hindi ka natuto after failure, what, 'di ba? Sayang naman yung failure na yun, yung pinagdaanan mo.
Oo. And I
Or,
always believe that itong failure na to, nangyayari siya kasi meron tayong kailangang matutunan. And minsan, paulit-ulit nangyayari kasi hindi natin natututunan yung lesson.
Mm.
So, from...
sorry, I just to add, ako meron akong theory na, well, it's not a theory, it's like a personal mantra that I tell people na the bad parts of a story or a movie need to happen for the good parts to happen. Kasi kung hindi mo ma-appreciate yung good parts, di ba?
That is right. That is so
Okay.
true. And no, even if it hurts, it's
It
a
really
given.
hurts.
It really hurts, and there is so much depth and so
Yeah.
much learning to get from that. Now, from Bianca Elizalde, what she said, you aren't defined by your failure. I love this. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. A lot of times kasi we attach our failure, our behavior to our persona, na palagi natin sinasabi, makalat ako, magaling ako sa math, it's attached to our failure. But with what she's saying about growth mindset is, with growth mindset kasi, tinatanggal mo, sineseparate mo yung behavior from the person.
Tama.
You are doing things that are makalat. Gumagawa ka ng mga bagay na magulo.
Hindi ka makalat na tao. You're
Oo.
doing because especially for kids, if you have kids, your parents, diba? Don't treat your children as that. Don't brand them or label them as that.
Yeah, that's why calling someone you're a bad kid is really hurtful. You're attaching that characteristic to the kid. So
Tama.
I like na parang you did something bad. You did something wrong. And I think that will also enable our children not to fear failure and making a mistake. And so
Correct.
my kid would say, I failed. I said, you
Mm.
know, you made a mistake and you can try again. So I love
Mm.
this. Thank you for that, Bianca. Change your perspective. Looking at failure as a learning experience eliminates the fear, that fear of losing ego, and allows you to focus on improving yourself. You know, with this
Correct.
one, naalala ko, kasi at the age of 45, 45 ako nag-umpisa, pero 47 na ako
45
ngayon.
ka na ba?
47 ako ngayon.
Okay. 37.
37 pala, sorry. Pero sa
Ah,
age na 'to, nag-start akong mag-snowboard. And bakit ko
oo.
sinubukan 'yun? Kasi gusto kong ma-experience yung talagang falling. Masakit,
Pareho
mahulog
tayo.
sa snowboard, 'di ba?
Pareho tayo.
Ah,
Yes.
at hindi mo puwedeng i-expect na unang pagsakay mo dun sa board na 'yan, or
Yes.
surfer ka man or skateboarder ka man, perfect ka
Basketball,
na agad.
whatever.
Oo, hindi puwede. Kailangan talaga sumemplang ka, matamaan ka ng whatever, bumagsak ka.
Kumbaga, walang gumaling na hindi nahulog.
Exactly,
'Di ba?
exactly. And kung gano'n, magician ka, 'di ba?
Galing mo.
Superman ka.
Ikaw na ang perfect. Ikaw na ang
Oo,
perfect.
ikaw na, 'di ba? So, it's really
Sap
changing
naman.
that perspective. I love it. So si Sap said naman, be kind and stop judging yourself. Deal
Yeah.
with failure by learning and moving on. There will be something out there for you and it will come eventually.
Ganda nun.
So, yan. Oh my goodness, nawala naman ako sa camera. Hello?
Yeah, you're
Ayan.
here. I have you.
Here,
Ganda
change
nag-ibang
background.
background.
Ayan. Galing, no? Nag-iba ako ng bahay bigla.
Kasi ng first
So,
thing last na sinabi niya, pinaka-importante, yung keep a journal. Kasi, you have to write down your success and your failures because that's the only way you can move forward by actually documenting it.
that's
And dati uso ang diary, ngayon hindi na. So I guess you just do it on your phone or, whatever, you can find that's convenient. Okay,
and
so thank you. Go ahead, Karel, go
I'm
ahead.
actually doing a couple of things right now with people. We're in 5 minutes lang. Just be kind to yourself. 5 minutes a day. Just
Mm.
tell yourself, I want to be kind to you today.
Be kind to yourself 5 minutes a day and then partner mo rin. Sabay mo na 5 minutes
Oh,
after, di ba?
oh, yeah. Be kind to
Okay.
your partner.
So there you have it. Yun yung mga recap natin sa mga natutunan natin today. Come and join our community via the official ReStart Facebook groups, which we have all 3 tracks: ReStart Business, Wellness, and Creatives. And sa groups na to, we offer exclusive content such as Ask Me Anything with our panelists, community webinars, and workshops. And possibly we can answer some of the questions that weren't answered here during the show. Of course, our sponsor, the World Institute for Incurable Diseases, would also like to invite you to this virtual convention. It's the 3rd annual International Convention on Higher Consciousness happening on November 8 and 15, 8 p.m. to 12:30 Philippine time. So if you'd like to know more, nandiyan yung link natin sa baba. But I think this is yung sinasabi ni Master na unlearn to learn. Yan yung gusto niyang sabihin. Okay.
Nice.
Ano pa ba? So, coping is not linear. Hindi siya isang tuwid na daan. It's something that is true now as it was ever before the lockdown started.
At pagdadaanan natin to, lilipas din ang krisis na to. The important thing to remember is that we do not let ourselves be defined by failure, by the failing times, and we find ourselves in, but by the ways we found the strength to continue.
Karel, I'm so happy that you're now going to start helping us host this show, because in this show, as always, we always believe that in times of crisis, it's not game over.
It's time to restart.